Los Angeles, late 19th century. A city in transition, where dusty roads met the first electric streetcars, where saloons and adobe homes stood beside immigrant shops. It was a place of promise and struggle, where cultures collided and survival was never guaranteed. This is the story of Solly Smith. In 1871, in the midst of this restless landscape, Solomon Garcia Smith was born. His father was Irish, his mother Mexican. Two worlds that rarely crossed paths were suddenly united in one child. He would later be known to history as Solly Smith, the Celtic Mexican. For a boy like him, belonging was complicated. At home, two cultures blended in language, food, and faith. But outside, the world did not see unity. It saw division. He was not fully Irish, not fully Mexican, and in the eyes of many, he was destined to remain on the margin. As a child, he discovered his gift, running. He could cover miles without tiring, leaving other boys gasping for air, while he pressed forward, his lungs carrying him farther than anyone thought possible. That endurance would become his greatest weapon, the invisible armor he would later bring into the ring. But in the Los Angeles of that era, opportunity was scarce, especially for those of mixed descent. The city was harsh, marked by labor disputes, racial tension, and poverty. For a young man like Smith, boxing became more than a sport. It was a way out, a stage where identity could be forged with fists instead of words. In 1888, at only 17, he fought his first professional bout. He was thin, unpolished, raw. His punches were wide, his style reckless. But what he lacked in skill, he made up for in grit. Time and again, he absorbed punishment that would have broken others, standing tall long after his opponents faded. By the early 1890s, his reputation stretched beyond California. He was no longer just a tough kid, he was a contender. And in 1893, his moment came. Before thousands at Coney Island's famed athletic club, Smith challenged the great George Dixon, a man already immortal in boxing history. Dixon was the master of his era, the first black world champion, a fighter of breathtaking skill and speed. Smith fought bravely, but in the seventh round, he was overwhelmed. The loss was decisive, but it was also a revelation. For the first time, the boxing world saw that the young man from Los Angeles could stand with the very best. The defeat did not break him, it shaped him. Over the next 4 years, Smith transformed. He fought to a draw against the defensive genius, young Griffo. He held his own against Frank Erna, a future two-division champion. He outlasted Torpedo Billy Murphy, a former champion, proving he was more than just stamina and courage. He was becoming a polished fighter. On October 4th, 1897, destiny returned. Smith was granted a rematch with George Dixon, who had ruled the featherweight division for 6 years. This time, Smith was ready. That night, the crowd watched something remarkable. The reckless boy of 1893 was gone. In his place stood a measured, calculating warrior. Every punch had purpose, every movement precision. Time and again, Dixon unleashed his trademark attacks, and time and again, Smith slipped beneath them, answering with sharp counters. When the final bell rang, history had been made. Solly Smith had dethroned a legend. He was the new featherweight champion of the world, the first world champion of Hispanic descent. For immigrants and marginalized families across America, his triumph was more than sport. It was validation, proof that someone like them could rise above the barriers of race and class. The future looked bright, but fate is merciless. In one of his first defenses, against Dave Sullivan, disaster struck. In the second round, Smith fractured his left arm near the wrist. Still, he fought on. For 3 more rounds, he threw punches only with his right hand, his useless left dangling at his side. The crowd watched in stunned silence as their champion tried to fight the impossible. By the 5th round, it was over. He could not continue. The title was gone. That night changed everything. The injury robbed him not only of strength, but of confidence. The sharpness, the rhythm, the fire that once defined him never fully returned. Over the rest of his career, he won only once in 15 fights. Each loss chipped away at his dignity. The man who had conquered George Dixon now seemed a shadow of himself. In 1904, his decline reached its bitter end. A knockout loss to Billy Snailham closed the book on his career. From the glory of world titles, Smith slipped into the silence of retirement, his name fading from the headlines. But history would not erase him, for though his reign was brief, his legacy was eternal. Solly Smith was the first world champion of Hispanic descent, In an America where prejudice was open and brutal, his victory was a beacon. It told Mexican Americans, Irish Americans, and all immigrant families that the ring was a place where barriers could be broken. Generations later, when Latino fighters became icons, when Salvador Sanchez electrified crowds, when Julio Cesar Chavez carried a nation on his shoulders, they walked through a door that Solly Smith had opened decades earlier. On August 28, 1933, Smith died at the age of 62. There were no stadiums filled with fans, no reporters rushing for quotes. His end was quiet, far from the noise of the ring, but his story remains. Whenever we speak of pioneers, his name lingers like a shadow that refuses to fade. The runner who became a champion, the son of two cultures who united them in a single body, the Celtic Mexican who, for one unforgettable night, stood atop the world. Perhaps the world forgot him in life, but the history of boxing remembered. Solly Smith proved that glory may be brief, but it never dies.